All right. So my camera's a little blurry. Sorry, guys. It's a little dirty. All right. Let's get going. So we're back. It's Jeremiah chapter 14. Feels like Jeremiah is the longest chapter ever, but it's the break. We took a break and a necessary break. So we're back in Jeremiah chapter 14. And I felt like it was a little delayed, but when I sat down and went back through the notes and went back through where we were, I feel like it's a perfect time for this kind of reminder. And I don't like, and you guys all know this, I don't like lessons that are like kind of somber. But I'm just going to set the framework ahead of time and I'll smile while I'm saying it. So it'll make it feel a little better. This is not an easy lesson. It's not an easy lesson for me. It's not going to be an easy lesson to hear. It's not going to be an easy lesson to process and digest. And it may be something that we come back to over and over again as we do the work. So for Patreon, actually in the process or want to add a book to our book reading list. We haven't did a book club in like forever. And over the last few weeks, I've been reading through this book at a very slow pace, probably the slowest pace I've ever read through a book, because we all know that I like to just get through it, get over it, get all the information in, but I've been really sitting with this. And it's probably going to seem like, what, why? But I've been reading a book on Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur is already over, right? But what I'm realizing, not only what I felt prompted, when I felt prompted in my spirit, but just where we are and what the work is, I believe that single-handedly, that is the most important work that we do. And I say that because the work that we do puts us in the position, it puts us in the, and I told you it's uncomfortable, but the only work that we have on this planet is to understand how to die well. I feel like that's the most terrible thing to say, because the idea that every day we're fighting to live, but in the overarching reality, and I'm going to explain how it's biologically set up, and I'll explain how this all makes sense to Jeremiah 14 too. Dying well is something that is necessary for the human because it causes us to live well. If we don't ever think about what the end is, then we'll live in the present in this kind of like YOLO mentality where it's like, okay, I only live once, but the reality is that you don't. And that the way you live right now, the way you're living today, the choices that we make today, literally every day we die. We die to ourselves. That previous version of us can never be re-accessed ever again. We can't get back those days. We can't get back that time. So in a reality, every day we die and we give birth to whatever we nurtured the day before. And we have to live in the reality of those choices. I was trying to find exactly where it was from, and then I rabbit trailed, but I'll share it with you and somebody else can do the investigative research. But out in the book I was reading, and I'll share it on Patreon later. I just need to post it and, make it look nice. But in the book that I was reading, the writer used a scientific fact that humans are the only beings who are aware that they can die. It's the only beings that have a conscious understanding that things can kill us, that this life comes to an end. And I was like, because I wonder, every morning I see dead squirrels, dead dogs on the side of the road. And I'm like, what would make that dog want to get out here with these cars and get ran over and die? That's not something that the beasts are wired to understand. They don't understand that the choices that they make can result in, can result in a finality, a decision that literally ends their existence. And the reason I believe that we as humans have that internal thing is that there's something beyond this. For the beast of the field, it is what it is. It is what it is. What's in it returns back to the ground. That's it. But the thing that's in us is eternal. So we have an understanding that how we treat the physical man also affects the spiritual man. And there's scripture to prove it, right? There's scripture to prove it. And in that reality, the idea and the real practice of a life where you prepare to die well is the most sacred and love-laden prescription that Yah could instill in us, but then to also give us the practices that cultivate the physical, the mental, and the emotional, so that we can do that well. Maya Angelou actually is the one where the quote of learning, she's like, I'm not trying to live this great life. I'm trying to learn how to die well. And I sat with that maybe 2 years ago, and I'm like, dang, she's saying that because she's old? But really, it's a fundamental principle that we can't live like the beast of the field, not understanding and being aware of what's happening internally, the alarms that are going off, the fact that literally we are not just here and then gone, because we have so many things embedded in our biology that tell us that we have to do something about this person that we are, that needs to be transformed into the likeness and image of which it was originally created, but back into the likeness and image of the Creator. We have to strive for that every day. And so the reason why I said Jeremiah 14, kind of like it seems like it goes backwards, is because we're going to revisit a little bit of Yom Kippur. So everybody in this space, in some capacity or another, is aware of Yom Kippur. And if it's something that's new to you, this may be your first time hearing about it, something to really research. I'm not going to go back into the what and how. We've kind of hit that in a series of videos. But what I'm going to address today, and the reason why I said it's uncomfortable, is because I'm going to challenge and in so many ways prod at what you actually did during Yom Kippur and what that means, what it looks like after Yom Kippur, and through a historical survey and context, challenge who and what pours into your life and why that's really important. The pinnacle of this, and it's not a spoiler alert, but it is the pinnacle of chapter 14, and why it's taken me so long to get here, is because as a people, especially as a religious people, we don't like when people talk about our pastors and our preachers. We don't like when people talk about our prophets. We don't like when people talk about our religious dedication, especially when we think we're in the truth and we have faith. We don't want those conversations. Those conversations are reserved for those in false religions. Those conversations are reserved for those who are deceived. Those conversations are reserved for those folk. That's not our folk thing. But scripture, without question, is telling us that's an us thing. That's an us thing. There is no such thing as a false prophet that's a false prophet that's not in Torah. Nobody cares. It's already false, right? Easter Bunny, imaginary things are fake because they're fake. But when it gets interesting is when the real becomes fake, when the authentic is inauthentic. That's when it gets really interesting. And that's when a large level of spiritual discernment is necessary. And we live in that time right now. We're constantly bombarded with information and things, and it is really, really difficult. And the scripture teaches that. It says that in the last days, if Yah doesn't interject, the most elect, those of us who feel like we got it, we would be deceived because it's so muddled. The waters become so muddied that you can't even tell the difference. And when we sit and we read scripture, especially a chapter like chapter 14, we wonder, how could they follow this falsehood? How could they listen to these false teachers saying they heard from Yah? Yah said this, but then you had Jeremiah over here and he was a real preacher. How do you know? How do you know? Right now, most of the people watching right now are listening to 5-10 different people. How do you know which one is right? You piecemealing. You're like, well, I like a little bit of this, and I like a little bit of this, and this person look holy, and well, them and they husband and they wife, and they together, and they kids is cute, and and you're doing all of this. How do you know? How do you know who's the Jeremiah of your time? How do you know who's the Isaiah of your time? Because guess what? They're not popular. People don't like them. They're probably not even somebody you see in everywhere. They've been shunned, they've been abandoned. How do you know who the false and the real is? And we tend to look back into the past, and we have hindsight, and hindsight, my goodness, is 2020. And we say, I would have been down with Jeremiah back in the day. It's like, would you have? Would you? You're like, I would have been rolling with Yeshua back in the day. Would you? Would that have been really? Because it was rough. It was rough. It was rough. To the point that, and I had it as a later note, but I'll mention it right now, to the point that it got so bad when Messiah started teaching and really calling people to be dedicated. It got to a point where he was like, y'all gonna leave too? Literally, the king. Y'all out too? Because they leaving y'all out. And their response was, and we'll loop back to this at the end, Peter's response, very vocal. He said, to whom else shall we go? Like, ain't nobody doing what you're doing, but that's only known because of proximity. And a lot of us don't have the privilege of proximity to the people that are pouring into us. So how do we know? What is Scripture giving us so that we know? What are these practices that Yah is giving us that we know? And Yom Kippur is one of those practices because it deals with the idols in our hearts. It deals with the things that we want to stay nice and fluffy, and Yah constantly keeps tearing it down and forces us all to stand in this reality so that we can see him clearly, because it's not about seeing the people clearly. Marred vessels. Everyone's the same. The false prophet and the true prophet both have the same level of issues. So it can't be whether or not one person has a better life, or, this person is so convicted about things. That ain't it. You can read through the scripture, that ain't it. The David and every person has the same level of drama in their life. That ain't it. That's not the measure at all. The measure is in the dedication to the principles and the practices that refine the person. Not looking at how much a person has. We're not looking at how they seem to be. It's literally in the principles and the practices and what they're rooted to. So this year, as we were going through Yom Kippur, it's rough year for me. And not so much because the fasting was rough. It was the necessity of facing reality. Because I think a lot of times, and if we were to admit it, we're using the practices as a Band-Aid and not using the practices for true transformation and true refinement. Not saying that for everybody, but a lot of times it's easy to do the thing, but it's more difficult to do the thing attached to the thing consistently all year long, which is why Yom Kippur is a life practice, because we have to practice sitting in the seat of the judgment every day, because every day not only could be your last day, but every day is the last day you have that day, and it becomes what you are weighed and measured in the coming days. That makes sense? So for instance, we have a really good practice called Shabbat. It's really cool. You prepare the day before for what you're going to need the next day. Lack of preparation the day before means you have lack the day when you don't have anything. It's a normal life principle. If you invest in the preparation the day before, it's easy the next day. And that practice can literally carry on. And I heard my personal trainer said, you don't prepare to come to the gym today when you wake up in the morning. You'll never come if you prepare when you wake up in the morning. When you prepare to come to the gym, the day you leave the gym. When you leave the gym, you begin your preparation for getting back here the next day. And Yah set that precedent. That's why people argue this hand over fist. It's fine. Everybody can have their opinions. The day starts in the evening. The preparation for the next day begins when you end the previous day. It's a life principle. Because if you start the day when you wake up, you failed the day. If you start working on judgment at judgment day, you failed judgment day. doesn't work like that. Everything is prepared for ahead of time. There's not a person who's like, oh, no. When I wake up on my wedding day, that's when I'm going to start preparing for my wedding. Oh, no. I don't. Everybody does everything ahead of time when it's important. And that's Yah's issue with us. He's like, you're not preparing ahead of time for what's coming. And because you don't prepare ahead of time for what's coming, you then want to cry out in unpreparedness. And he's like, eventually I'm not gonna hear it. And that's a hard thing to hear from the living Elohim. So atonement was not and never has been. Isaiah 57 and 58. I'm very much, I think I'm going to read it. Isaiah 57 and 58 is very interesting because it really segues into where we're going. Atonement was not just about fasting, but about your willingness to give over your sins instead of having to be judged for them. What a beautiful exchange. The point of atonement, the point of Yom Kippur, the point of judging, being judged, is so that I can willingly hand over my offense and my transgression, willingly align with Yah before I have to have judgment for not aligning with Yah. We've been giving a really convoluted idea of sin and everything. You know what the worst part about sin is that we stay in it. That's the worst part of it. The fact that we feel shamed and guilty by what we did, that we hold on to it and it becomes a trauma and it becomes this terrible thing and we beat ourselves up about it all the time. That's the worst part about it. Because remember, we all remember, the doing it wasn't bad. The doing it. Oh, we enjoyed the doing it. We're not gonna lie. We enjoyed the doing it. Now I ain't got time to think about that. We enjoyed the doing it. But the worst part is the after. And it's so beautiful that Yah has literally a practice set up that he says, literally, I'll take the doing it and I'll take all that if you just give it over willingly. But we then hold on to it because of shame and guilt, and it turns into this thing. So then guess what? If you hold on to it, then as I judge you, I judge that. I have to have you give me that in you, everything. You have to give me everything out of you so that when I judge you, I see me. I see the refinement and the process that I did. If you hold on to it, I'm judging you and the contents that are within you. It's not good. Yah was like, I already know I got to be just. So I'm going to set up this practice. It's a literal, honest reflection of what true forgiveness is. And the practice is a preparation for death and destruction, but with honest introspection. Then the laws and the practices become a prescription of propitiation. Propitiation is this idea of literally being wiped clean, something being done and paid for you. Like literally, it's a practice of true atonement, being smeared and covered. That's the word for atonement, kafar. Literally mean to be smeared within and without it. We see it the first time in Genesis during the flood. And it's interesting because the necessity of atonement came because, and I'll actually pull up the screen and be the first thing I show. You guys remember Genesis 6:5? If you're reading the Torah portion, then you just got a little bit outside of Genesis 6:5 right now. Genesis 6:5. Why did we need a boat to provide atonement? Because that was actually the function of the boat, if you never knew that. Genesis 6:5 says that, and Yah saw, and Elohim saw that the wickedness of man, the dysfunctional imagination, the Ra of man was great, gadol, in the earth. It was great in the earth. Like Rabam, sorry. It was multiplying in the earth, and that every imagination, literally everything that was formed in the mind, when they thought of something and they formed a thought, the thoughts in their mind were evil. He wasn't even talking about actions. Maybe people do bad things. I mean, it was beyond actions. He said when they even just started to think about doing something, the process of their thinking was dysfunctional and evil. And it repented, great word. It repented, yeah, that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him in his heart. So then the very first time we see in a collective sense, we see atonement all the way back in Genesis, when he literally takes the skins, puts it on them, sends them out. But when we see it in the sense of this word kafar, where he pitches within and without and does a collective redemption, he has this man Noah and his family build a space to enter into where they have to leave the other stuff behind. They have to be really secure in their understanding of him. They have to follow his instructions intently because their life depends on it. Literally, like, you got to build it like this. What if they would just pitch the outside, not the inside? Whatever it was, they had to do that. And then literally he placed the weight of the saving of humanity juxtaposed to the obedience of Noah. Yah didn't build a little side thing for the animals just in case Noah messed it up. And it shows that everything that we do is intertwined. So when we go back to Jeremiah chapter 14, where we were last time, and it talked about how, and I'm just going to guard your eyes and scroll back a little bit. It starts off with there being a drought. And it's almost as if I was just, one of those people that believes the Bible, that the conditions of the land were directly connected to the condition of the people. And the animals, we talked about that. You had the animals who were looking for grass and looking for this. And the animals, remember, they don't understand that I could die because of these choices. I can die because of other people's choices. But as guardians of literally the whole earth, that has not changed. Go all the way back to Genesis and talk about the dominion of man. The sin marred a system so bad that the creatures that are dependent and only know to be dependent are not even aware that the humans in their midst are messing things up. And it's interesting because we find out later on that the whole creation is waiting for our obedience. It's in Revelation, waiting for us to understand and come to who we are so we can operate in obedience so that everything can be well. Because they don't have this power. The obedience of the trees, the obedience of the animals, the obedience of the fish does not have the power to bring about the redemptive work that is embedded in our repentance and our obedience. So in Jeremiah 14, we see there's a drought. You got all this stuff going on, and you have animals looking for water. And literally you have a people who are seeing all of this. Their children are affected. And everyone's lost. Everyone's lost and everybody's looking for something. And I know it's an uncomfortable feeling because we don't come into, and I'm going to use this loosely, we don't come into truth thinking that we're still going to be looking for something. We don't come into truth thinking that we're still going to be empty. We don't come into truth and think that we'd be handling the magnitudes of the issues that we're dealing with right now. We don't come into truth thinking that literally everything that we hold dear in our faith is going to be challenged. We didn't come into this walk to be deceived again. We didn't come into this walk for relationships to fall apart. We didn't come into this walk to know more than we've ever known and seemingly be more depressed than we've ever been. And people are like, no, I got joy, I got this. And I'm like, and that's great. Joy is not based upon circumstance. But sometimes we're at a place where that's not always present. And I know there are people, and I love the toxic optimism. I think it's a great thing. I commend it. I operate in that same space. I have to, just to even make it through the day. And I get it. But I roll with this dude, and his name is David. And literally he had to write about things like, don't take the joy of your salvation away from me. Because if just being in proximity to Yah and just knowing Yah makes that a thing, David seems to show and prove that life be lifing. Hecka hard. That was not my first choice of words. Very hard. It's the reality of what this experience is. And so when we look at passages like this, and we look at a person like Jeremiah, and we look at a people who literally have brought a lot of things upon themselves, but also it's a collective disobedience that is at play. It's very, very difficult to be human in a world where that's a truth. And we look around and we're seeing it everywhere right now. So I was going to read Isaiah, and I'm going to read Isaiah because we're going to read Isaiah. All right, so bear with me. I'll try not to give any commentary, and you'll see how this all fits in. Isaiah was before Jeremiah, and if you read Isaiah and Jeremiah, they're very similar. Yah is not changing up what he's saying. So anybody was like, and then he came with a new word in the New Testament, and no, he's consistent. All the way through. The prophets are consistent. The human heart is consistent. The deceitfulness is consistent. The wickedness is consistent. You can trace it all the way back. It's the same things. We're getting caught up in the same things over and over again. And it comes down to choice. It comes down to a choice, and not an easy choice, and not a one-time choice, but a continual choosing of what is right and what is good over me, over myself. It is the definition of righteousness. The definition of righteousness, I'm taking the shot on myself every day. Every day. Every day. I'm like the zombie apocalypse version that keeps coming back. And every day I have to keep taking the shot on that version. Why? Because that which is dead wants to live. And the more that I begin to find and live in the life that Yah gave me, the more death attracts to me. It's a principle. That which is dead needs life. The more I begin to operate in life, the more the dead things come back. But that should not discourage me, and that should not show me that I'm going backwards. It's actually proving that I'm going forward. And if you think I'm kidding, it was literally the most fullness part of Yehoshua's life. The fullest part of it is when literally the idea of being put on the tree and that body doing what it was supposed to do and giving all that life, literally dead people got up. So the fullness of life literally is going to bring up the dead, but it's not in the ability to make you stumble. It's a testament to all the things that you had to put down, and those things also have to glory in what Yah did. Don't ever forget that. Just don't ever forget that. So anyways, Isaiah 57. The righteous perish, and no man layeth it to heart. And merciful men are taken away, and none considering that the righteous is taken away from evil to come. That's probably like, I don't remember this. He shall enter into peace, and they shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness. But draw near hither, ye sons of sorcerers, the seed of the adulterer and the whore. Against whom do ye sport yourselves? Against whom make ye a wide mouth and draw out the tongue? Are you not children of transgression, a seed of falsehood, inflaming yourself with idols under every green tree, slaying children in the valley under the cliffs of rocks? Among the smooth stones of the stream is your portion. They are your lot. Even to them have you poured a drink offering. You have offered meat offering. Should I receive comfort in these? Upon a lofty and high mountain, you have set your bed. Even there you went up to offer sacrifice. Behind the doors also in the posts have you set up your remembrance. For you have discovered yourself to another than me, and are gone up. You have enlarged your bed and made you a covenant with them. You loved their bed where thou sawest it, and you went to the king with ointment and increased your perfumes, and sent you the messengers from afar, and was debased even unto hell. You are weary in the greatness of your way, yet you say, there is no hope. You have found the life of your hand, therefore you weren't grieved. And of whom hast thou been afraid or feared that thou hast lied? And hast thou not remembered nor laid it to heart? It's like, wait, you did this. This is all you. Have not I held my peace, even of old? And you weren't afraid of me? I will declare your righteousness and the works, for they shall not profit thee. When you cry, let the companies deliver you. But the wind shall carry them all away, and vanity shall take them. But he that putteth his trust in me shall possess the land, and shall inherit my holy mountain, and shall say, cast ye up, prepare the way, take the stumbling block out of the way of the people. For thus saith the high and lofty one, that inhabited eternity, whose name is Kodesh, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, with him also that is of a contrite and a humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble, and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. For I will not contend forever, neither will I always be wroth. For the spirit shall fail before me, and the souls which I have shall fail before me, and the souls which I have made. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth and smote him. I hid me and was wroth, and he went on forwardly in the way of his heart. I have seen his ways and will heal them. I will lead him also and restore comforts unto him and to his mourners. I create the fruit of the lips. Peace, peace to him that is afar off, and to him that is near, saith Yah, and I will heal him. But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. There is no peace, saith Yah, to the wicked. I'm going to 58. You guys all know this part. A lot of people missed the beginning part. Why was Yah calling for 58? Because of 57. Why are we reading what we're reading about Yom Kippur in Jeremiah 14? Because the behaviors were consistent with 57. Watch this. And a lot of people, if this is your first time hearing this, I hear people use this particular chapter and they kind of like apply it everywhere, but this is actually a Yom Kippur chapter. This is a judgment and atonement chapter. The chapter literally on Yom Kippur. Watch it. Cry aloud, spare not. Lift up your voice like a trumpet and show my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways as a nation that did righteousness and forsook not the ordinance of their Elohim. They ask me of the ordinance of justice. They take delight in approaching to Elohim. This part right here. I did a thing, and I have to interject here, a few weeks ago leading up to this, because this verse was in my list. And I said, what if Yom Kippur didn't work? What if it didn't work? What if you didn't do it? What if you thought you did it because you fasted, but you didn't really do the work? That is the question literally right here, which is where my question came from. He says, wherefore have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? He said, why do we fast and don't seem like you're doing nothing, Yah? Isn't that question like hit me like a ton of bricks? Oh. Wherefore have we afflicted our souls, and it don't seem like you taking any knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast, ye find pleasure and exact your labors. Behold, you fast for strife and debate, and to smite the fist of the wicked of wickedness. Ye shall not fast as you do on this day. See, y'all doing the fasting that y'all choose to do on the days, and that's good. Fasting is good, by the way. He said, but for my day, he says, you're not going to fast on other days like you do on this day. See, you're trying to fast to make your voice heard on high. It is such a fast that I have chosen. He's like, did I ask you to do that? A day for a man to afflict his soul? He's like, that's a daily practice. Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this a fast and an acceptable day unto Yah? Is not this the fast that I have chosen? He said, I'm going to tell you the one that I've chosen. To loose the bands of wickedness, to undo heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke. Is not it to deal bread to the hungry, and that they'll bring the poor that are cast out into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them, and that you not hide yourself from your own flesh. You know, those of us who like, oh, I'm in Torah, so I don't have to deal with my family. He's like, whoa. He said, then, he said, if you do the things that I want done, You just want to stop eating. Well, it's easy because all of us need to stop eating. We got fat reserve. He's like, that's cute. You want to fast for 24 hours and, do that. He said, how about you do this stuff? How about you do this like daily lifestyle kind of repentance type of stuff? He says, because when you do that, then shall light break forth as morning, and your health shall spring forth readily, because the practice of fasting is supposed to actually heal the body. That's the whole point. So heal the body, heal the mind. He says, and your righteousness shall go before thee. The glory of Yah shall be your reward. Then shall you call, and Yah will answer. Like, wait, so not eating, not just praying about it, not just telling you all my business, and that's part of it. He's like, but I actually have to do something, and then you're going to listen? Go figure, right? He says, you'll call me and I'll answer. And then when you cry, I'll say, here I am. If you take away the mist out of the midst of thee, the yoke, the putting forth of the finger, speaking vanity, and if you draw out your soul to the hungry, that's a whole nother thing, and satisfy the afflicted soul, pour out your soul. That's a whole, somebody do something on that. Then shall your light come up in obscurity, and your darkness be as noonday. It will be revealed. You have to see you. You have to be able to see you. That's the whole point. And Yah shall guide you continually and satisfy your soul. See, I love when the word in the block. In a drought, and make your bones fat, and you shall be like a watered garden, and like a spring of water whose waters fail not. And they that shall be of you shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt rise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach and the restorer of paths to dwell in. If you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your own pleasure on my holy day, now you know what his holy day is, right? The Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath, the scripture does not contradict itself. That is for you. That is for your pleasure. That day of rest is for you. This one, he said, this Shabbat, the one of Yom Kippur, the one of judgment, the one of transformation, that's mine. That's my day. You can't do nothing on that day because that's mine. That's the day when you see the great and awful version of me. That's the day when I open up the book and I begin writing in who is here and present and who is to the destruction. That day you sit in silence. That day a dog's tail doesn't wag and a cow doesn't moo. That day the whole world bows and waits for my final judgment. You practice that day. Weekly Shabbat, you do you. Within boundaries, but you get it. That's for you. That's for man. That's to restore. That's to replenish. That's to rest. That's to fill your cup. On this day, you pour out. You give it all up. He says, from doing thy pleasure and call the Sabbath a delight. The Holy One of Yah, honorable, and thou shalt honor him, not doing your own ways, not finding your own pleasure, not speaking your own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in him. He's like, you give kavod, there's weight. And anybody who doesn't feel heavy on Yom Kippur is a problem. It's a problem. He said, then shalt thou delight thyself in Yah, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high place of earth and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of Yah has spoken it. So you go into chapter 14, and I had to recap Yom Kippur because we've been so long. He says, when we get to Jeremiah 14, the last part that we got to was just kind of heavy. We ended off with pray not for this people for their good. The verse here is not telling Jeremiah that he can never pray for the people ever again, and that the good of the people should never be prayed for. That's not the point. He's saying, pray not right now in their current state for their good, because they know better. And they're choosing this. verse 12 is where we're picking up. He says, when they fast, how I had to go all the way back to Yom Kippur. When they fast, what are they fasting for? When they fast, I will not hear their cry. So all of us here who find ourselves, I'm gonna give up this, I'm fasting, I'm praying, I'm fasting. We need to figure out what the roadblock is between us and Yah hearing from us. Because see, we're working ourselves sick. We think we're doing what Yah is asking us to do without an outcome, but you don't have the proper alignment. You're not on the path to even get the outcome. He's like, I don't want that. And he goes, but I'm fasting, but I'm praying, but I'm not eating. He's like, I didn't ask for that. You fasted and prayed enough. Go do something. You have to do something now. The fasting and prayer are the agreement that something needs to be done. So go do the thing that's done. I've told you what it is you need to do. So he says, when they fast, I will not hear their cry. Dang. And when they offer burnt offerings, you're like, okay, I'm a sacrifice. I don't even want your sacrifice. And when you offer an oblation, I will not accept them. He said, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kill you. How about that? I am going to consume them by the sword and by the famine and by the pestilence. You're like, that is cold. I'm praying and I'm fasting, and my response from the Creator is sword, famine, pestilence. Yikes. The last thing I know everybody wanted me to say is that what you did at atonement fell on a deaf ear. Because that's sometimes the only thing we have left in this life, is that at least Yah hears me when I pray. And if I'm dealing with this, it's because Yah is saying that this is just what is for me. Partially true. But what if he's saying this is your lot because you don't listen? This is your lot because I'm telling you what to do, but you don't want to do what I want you to do. So you're going to do what you want to do. And then you want to ask me to forgive you for what you've done. So many of us are ingrained in that mindset, and it's a very much a religious mindset. I do this, I ask God for forgiveness. But this verse right here upends everything we know about classical Western religion, which is do it, then ask God for forgiveness. Do it, then ask Jesus to forgive it. Jesus paid it all. Literally, it's like you do it, and if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, it's not because I'm leaving you in the dark. If you do what you want to do and then bring me the stuff after, I don't receive it. That is what we call presumptuous sin. Presumptuous sin is knowing better and doing it anyways. Knowing what is right and then choosing to do it anyways. Those are things that we have to, my brother-in-law says, he's like, I stand 10 toes down on the stuff I do. You better be able to. You better be able to stand on it if it's something you choose to do. It's not that Yah doesn't have forgiveness, but the things that we do knowingly, we have to carry those. And I'm talking about knowingly, we have to then, it is now our responsibility. And all of it really, but especially those, because the things that we know we're not supposed to do cause the most shame and guilt. And those are the things that on Yom Kippur and on a daily, we have to say, I got to give that back to you. And if I have to give that back to you every day, I have to do it, but I can't do it in vanity, because then when I cry and come to you, you're not going to help me. We all know what it's like to feel like when Yah helps us give over something. But does anybody have to give over something that Yah's like, no, you going to have to do that. I'll take it, but you're going to have to do that. That is not an easy process. So literally, the last thing that we want to hear is that we've done performative practices, and it literally has put Yah's ears on mute to our voice. Many of those pretending to be righteous are walking dead who have been assigned to pestilence, the sword, and famine this coming year because they chose to reject Yah and his practice of salvation through introspective repentance. See, people are we're superstitious. Oh, I made it through Yom Kippur, I didn't die. But the whole point of Yom Kippur is the judgment. It's where you're assigned to. People trip out because they're like, I did all the stuff that Yah told me to do last year, but then this year I've been assigned to death. I've been assigned to famine. My life is in a drought. I feel like the devourer is eating up everything around me. Then how is your practice? How is your practice of repentance? throughout the year? How was your practice? How are you moving? How were you honest with Yah? Because we're at a time, and many of us in our lives are past the point where Yah is giving us a pass. He says, in the past time, Yah winked at your ignorance. You're not ignorant anymore. So now there's consequence for what you do. When you're a little baby, right? And you do stuff and you go to the bathroom on yourself. It's really cute. It's like, oh, it's a baby. I get to change diapers. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but when that 7, 8-year-olds start doing that stuff, that ain't cute no more. It's like, what is wrong? Immediately we go, what's wrong with you? What's happening? Something's off. And Yah's the same way. When you are at the beginning stages and you're understanding and you're learning, Yah's like, they're trying. So you make mistakes, you stumble. It's not saying you can't make mistakes, but you should not be making the same mistakes that you were making. Because then Yah is saying, I know, Yah knows. Yah knows when a fruit is ripe to be picked, and he knows when a person is ripe to be able to hold the consequences of their decisions. He's like, I'm going to start having to give consequences to your actions. And that's what happened. Israel in its baby stages, Yah, it was quick. You do something, okay, I'm coming to fight for you. You cry, I'm coming to fight for you. All of a sudden, Yah was like, when you cry, I'm not listening. That wasn't the same Yah in Deuteronomy, Joshua, and Judges. That wasn't even the same Yah in 1st and 2nd Samuel, and even in the Kings. All of a sudden, though, the expectation of your ability to perform in a particular way now comes with a different level of responsibility, and the reaction is different. This is so interesting because when it comes to, let's go to verse 13. And then I said, says Jeremiah, Yah Elohim. He was like, behold, the prophets are telling them, though. The prophets say unto them, you're not going to see the sword. You're not going to see the famine. But I have given you assured peace in this place. And that's why I talked about at the beginning, being very, very cognizant of the people that you're listening to. The people who are pumping you up on this idea that you're a Hebrew, you're a Hebrew, you're a Jew, you're a Hebrew, and are not dealing with the reality that every person you read about in this book is a Jew and a Hebrew, an Israelite, every single person. And this is Yah's response to them. It's not a get out of jail free card. It's not an idea to turn your eyes somewhere else or onto somebody else. It's an opportunity to introspect because there's responsibility that comes with that. You shall not see the sword or the famine. You're going to have a sure peace in this place. We keep applying these verses to quote unquote Christians, but let's stop. Many of us during the week of Sukkot, we're sitting amongst men and women. I hate saying stuff like this. Men and women who are confirming the fact that your heart was not repentant. You got together to have fun. You got together and you still didn't do justice. It's not, feast days are not an opportunity to take a break off of being who you're supposed to be. Feast days are not an opportunity to say, oh, by the way, I'm just here to have a good time. And I know this is going, every time we join in community, it is our opportunity to restore, to correct, and to lead to repentance. And I've watched it. I've watched it every year. And I've been in it. I've watched it. People come and people are so caught up in, I don't want to ruin us having a good time. And so we do the very thing that we said we weren't going to do on the other side. We said, you know what? Yeah, we're going to do justice. And we're going to do these things and we're going to keep community together. And then you find people sitting around. You get too idle too long. Yah watches it. You sit around, you talk about people. Well, I don't know why I said as such. I ain't gonna say nothing. Blah, blah, blah. And you do the same thing. You do the same exact thing. And you get together and you literally become the division and the famine that then permeates through every part of the community. It's not happening because the outside world is doing something. It's happening because we're all not doing something. Or we are doing the things that we're not supposed to do. So happy to gather, but not realizing that every time we gather and we get into a camp, when we do the thing that brings people together, and we do the grace that Yah literally puts his careful watch and sees if what you said you wasn't going to do, you do, and then you turn around and do it in the midst of his holy fellowship. He says, but then they get together and they sing songs and they say, well, there's assured peace. Shalom, shalom. You just shalom it up. But your heart's wicked. You're doing the same crap that you were doing day 10 on day 14. You 4 days out. And you look at the Israelites like, I don't know how they saw all the stuff that y'all did and then still turn around and do the same things. And you're sitting up doing it. You're sitting in the midst of it. Well, ain't nobody perfect. It's not about perfection. It's not about perfection. That's not the point. It's about perfecting so that we get toward the perfection of Yah and walking and constantly aiming at that mark. But here we are, and many of us have been the false prophet and false preacher. That's pretty much my kicker. You're looking externally, but the one that's prophesying, the person saying, you're telling people, this is me. Yah is taking me to the threshing floor. This is the seed revealed. This is what it looks like to be a Hebrew. This is what it looks like to be an Israelite. This is what peace looks like. And you're lying. You lied. You lied. You literally performed the ritual with no high priest. If you rejected Yah's salvation, there is no atonement. So literally you went through the ritual, but Yah wasn't present because Yah knew you were lying. He didn't take your fast. He didn't accept your dwelling. He didn't show up. You got in religious ecstasy. You got into a space, groupthink happened, and you know how I can prove it? Because you're dealing with the same stuff on the other side and you're still not willing to look at yourself. You don't have no real friends. You don't have nobody to call you out. You don't have nobody you can be transparent with. You went into the space with the mask on. You said you took off the mask at Yom Kippur and then you showed up at Sukkot with the mask on. You picked it back up. You're afraid more of man than you are of Yah. You're afraid to heal because of how man's going to look at what that process looks like. And that's going to make you not a real Hebrew. No, that lying and that faking and then fake friends and that fake community and then fake teachings because it feels good. That is what your problem is. That's the problem. Literally, many people chose to hold on to the same version of themselves playing with Yah. You were better off coming out looking war-torn and whooped than pretending like Yah did a transformation that didn't happen. We all await death, but it's not always death. See, that's the thing on the other side. Some of us in the space, and some of us who will hear this have been assigned to the dividing of your homes with the sword. And it doesn't have to be you, but it can be the false practice of the person paired with you. If you don't hold the person in your life accountable, the sword is not just death. That's what we got on. You're waiting for the big thing. But having to live with a divided home, having to go this next year with the famine of the word where you don't feel like you hear Yah. When you read and you study, it don't come clear. Why? Because he's like, you didn't let go of the thing I told you to let go of. I'm not giving you anything else. It's not a mean thing. It's like you don't have the capacity for anything else because clearly the thing you can't let go is taking up a lot of space. Yah's voice is not heard and you're fed rocks for bread. Stomach is heavy, but it's empty. And some will have all peace snatched this year and be forced to navigate the horrors and atrocities that your sin will bring when it's unconfessed and unrepentant. You get a chance. It's not that you won't pick up new things. The point is you will get dirty over this year. But when you dirty with the same stuff, literally the scripture says, and we laugh at this verse, it's like a man who beholds his face in the mirror and walks away and forgets what manner of man he is. That's what this is like when you come out of Yom Kippur. You forgot everything you said. You forgot the heaviness of the past year. You want to pick that crap up again? Or this one, people love to use this. See, like a dog returned to his vomit. And here we are vomiting up everything, standing fearful and shaking before the great Elohim, and then going back and licking up our vomit, eating our own throw up. And then being like, oh, but my stomach hurts. Yah was like, okay. So then Yah said to me, not to me, but to Jeremiah. He said, the prophets, the ones who are uncovering the seed, the ones who have you on the threshing floor and say they've been through the threshing floor, he said, lie in my name. See, people like me and others, there's some of us, who it's a lot of things I don't like. And I'm not good at a lot of things. I'm on this journey. We're all on this journey together. But let me tell you something I don't like. I don't like to be lied on. Kendrick Lamar said, and I say this, I think it's very apple. He says, don't tell a lie on me if you don't want me to tell the truth on you. If there was anything prophetic about anything he said, I think it's that, because Yah's like, no, you lied. These prophets are lying in my name, and because they lied, I'm going to tell the truth on them. But see, we don't like to hear the truth when we've been lied to, because we don't like to feel like we've been lied to. My mom says, she said, I never believed a lie that I didn't want to be true. And so this idea that we turn a blind eye to the things that we hear that are false because we want it to be true. We want to believe that our teachers and our preachers are doing what they're supposed to do. We want to believe that the person singing the Shema and doing X, Y, and Z is not a vile, dirty, dark, twisted person, because how could you get up there and how could you do that? And how could you say that if you were lying? And I'm like, if we don't let Yah be true and every man a liar, Yah said, they prophesy lies in my name. And that's not just saying, and Yah told me to say, he said, they act like they have my character. They act like they are close to me. And see, it's so easy to believe that when you look at Christian pastors or you look at other Western religion that you've probably come out of, you say, oh, I know they lying. But it's so hard for you to believe that the person that has a little bit of truth to what they're saying is a liar, and that they don't carry the character of Yah, and that literally they are motivated by so many other things other than being securely fastened to Yah. Yah went a step further. He didn't say they just lie in my name. He says, I didn't send them. Oh, this is my person. I'm receiving them. Yah sent me to them. He said, really? Because I didn't send them. What do you do when Yah has a return to sender package and you hold on to it? He's like, I didn't send that. That wasn't me. And you're like, but they preach good and they Hebrew and they Israelite and they got a beard and you got like, oh, but she got a hair wrap and she said da-da-da-da, and well, she ain't doing what I sent them not. How about this? This is my favorite part. He says, neither, not only did I not send them, he's like, they don't know me. They using my character. I didn't send them. I didn't say go. Because see, when Yah sends somebody, he sends them. And let me tell you, 99.9% of the time, they don't want to go. There's those of us, I'm going to put myself in this particular category, those of us who actually are aware of our humanity and understand there's nothing that I can do to be worthy to do this. So when people pick me apart, I have to be like, okay, I have to just take it, because guess what? There's nothing. I have to live. I have to grow. I have to change. I have to be transparent. I have to go through Yom Kippur. I have to come out looking like I was in the war room, right? It's just what it is, right? You don't want to go. I struggle. It's a struggle every time I get behind this camera. Not because I'm like, oh, because I'm so bad, I don't deserve. No. It's because I just want to work on me. I don't doubt the fact that Yah will do what he continues to do. I don't doubt the fact that Yah has given me gifting and call. It's not false humility. The reality is I understand this. So what I want to do is just work on me. I just want to work on me. And those who are truly sent, they're not running because they're bad people or they are so, oh, woe is me. I'm not pulling a Saul, right? It's a David thing where he's like, if I just need to work on me, then that's okay. He says, those other ones, I sent them not. This one, neither have I commanded them. The command is a military term. A command literally says, I didn't deploy them. I didn't give them orders. So yes, they may be gifted. Yes, they may have came. Yes, they may be Israelite. Yes, they may have a Bible. Yes, they may be teaching you, but they don't have orders. They got a gun. They got camo. They don't have orders. They're going to war with no orders. They're out there with no orders. Nobody wants to see that. If you saw military men walking down your street right now, and you literally looked online, nobody told you, asked who told you? Oh, I'm just here because I want to be here. That is frightening, to have a person who is loaded with guns and ammunition and the ability to strike and kill, who has no order on when to stop, what to do, who they're doing it to. It's just, I'm doing it because I want to. Yah says, literally, these prophets either I've never sent them, or currently I'm not sending them, or maybe they are called, but they don't have orders, so they shouldn't be moving. You don't have deployment orders, so you don't fly over to Iraq and Afghanistan and just pick up a gun and start fighting. You don't have orders. You don't have the authority to be here. And he says, and even further, because maybe you're not going to catch it, he says, neither spake unto them. Not only do they just not have orders, but I never even talked to them. So if they're talking, it's because those words are theirs and not mine. That should put us on high alert. And that's scary because we go, well, then who can I trust? Yeah. He says this part, and this we might have to end here and pick back up. I hate doing a part 3, but we'll see. Let's try to keep going. He says, and I'm going to tell you what they're saying. This is where I love Yah. And if you haven't gotten to the point where you love Yah, even when he chastises us for our ignorance, then you got to get there. Not only does he tell you I didn't send them, but then he's going to tell you what they're saying to identify that he didn't send them. Colon, I love a good colon. They prophesy. He's giving a list now. Colon is for a list. Colon's for additional. Unto you a false vision, divination, a thing of naught, and the deceit of their heart. If you don't leave with anything else, false vision, divination, a thing of naught, and deceit of their own heart. Hebrew Israelite prophets, preachers, seers, giving you a false vision, divination, a thing of naught, and the deceit of their heart. I said it that many times because I know, ain't nobody know what that means. But like, okay, yeah, it sounds all bad. All of it's bad. It is. All of it is bad. Literally, false vision means that they've broken faith. People think that breaking faith means that people joined another faith. Breaking faith means that you're no longer securely fastened to the person, to the source. So this false idea is that they literally have lied and saying that they're securely fastened, and they're not. The idea of vision here is seeing something that normally is not visible. They're like, I'm seeing something. I'm having a vision. Having a vision about something, yeah, is showing me something, and they're using the word and they're showing you all these things. This is the part that got me though. This idea that they're pretending to do a feat that's beyond comprehension is soothsaying. I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only one Yah's revealing this to. I'm the The revealed things belong to you. So a person that uses that type of rhetoric or language when they're uncovering the word is not invested in the revelation that you're supposed to have, but they're invested in the magnitude of what it means to be them, and that they get to impart that. The beauty of having a preacher, prophet, teacher is that they reveal without big dogging you. You're down here, I'm up here. It's like, no. Yah is using me, simple me, to do something that you all have the power to do, and there's no magic in it. It's not something that's just for me. It's not something you can just get here. It's actually in you, and I need to be teaching you how to do it. And if you think that's not true, and you think that that way is proper, let's think of any time Messiah big dogged a person. Never. You know what he told? He walked on water, healed blind, and all this stuff that is amazing, beyond human comprehension, and said, hey, and by the way, all these things and more you can do. What a difference. What a difference. The literal King of Glory saying, what I did, you have the opportunity to do because it's in you too, not I'm so special, you have to come to me and get this. That is the idea that a person saying, I can tell you what's happening in the future. I can tell you what's happening beyond right now because, see, I have this special connection to Yah, and I need you to rely on me. That's a false vision, and that's deception. Literally, it's a nation of priests, a nation. The children are supposed to prophesy and see dreams and visions and be able to operate in the gifts. It's not singular, and it is in the identifying of where we need to align that we begin to do so. It's not to go to a person so that they can tell us what Yah's doing for them. It's for us to all be learning of the path and walking alongside that person so that we can all do those things also. So this idea that this person has this ability to have this revelation that nobody else has. Yah was like, that's a false vision, because there's no revelation outside of scripture. If you go to Peter, he says, there's no private interpretation. The interpretation is consistent and the same for everybody. That's what it is. It's not taking away that people are gifted and people dedicate more time and people have cultivated their lives in a way that make them able to. I'm not taking away from that. But he says, what they're telling you, when they're telling you that I'm not going to do what I'm going to do, he said, that's a false vision. And it can be the same way, because people like to hear the bad things that are going to happen to them. But when people don't tell you the good that Yah's going to do, and they only tell you the bad and how Yah's going to chastise you, that's a false vision. Because the vision that Yah has for his people is prosperity, is hope, but it's with repentance and it's with obedience. He says it's divination. He says literally they're not doing anything special. That's why he said don't worry about it. He said literally they're predicting and manipulating and surveying the future, which in Hebraically is the past, it's what's laid out clearly. But they're so careful and crafty that they're able to manipulate the variables of the reality you're not able to see because you're not predatory. And they're using your past and all the stuff they know to construct something that makes you feel comfortable. That's what's happening. So when you listen to something, oh, you know what? I've always been the black sheep in my family. And I just knew, that's how I knew I was a da-da-da-da. And so they get up and preach, you always been the black sheep. And people always get you to the side. So if your family rejects you because you it's because Yah's doing. It's like, okay, could be, but that's not special. That's not a revelation. That's a reality. That's just what that is. Oh, you better than them people because see they do da da da. And it's like, oh yeah, but that's divination. That's the ability to look at and survey everything and come up with something. But if it's not done under the command and being sent and being spoken to by Yah, it's not real. And that's why the false prophet and the true prophet sit literally they look the same. The difference between the two is the outcome. It's what they're pouring into other people. It's what they're doing in their own life. And when you survey this particular situation and the fact that there's a famine, they're lying to people and telling them they have peace when there's no water and the children can't get food and the animals are dying, but you're literally playing a mind game and you're tricking them to get them to see something else. You're tricking them to get them to see something else. You got people literally right now, I'm not talking about Christians, I'm talking about Hebrew Israelite teachers. You get online, you give them money, you're doing the same exact things, and you have no ability to know what you're attached to. And they're telling you what to think. And when a person teaches you, and when a person tells you something, it literally shapes the way you view the world. So you wonder how people walk around and the world's, it's a pretty crappy place, but the Yah's still good. And you have people who literally can still have peace and joy. But then you sit and you listen to people who pump fear and you walk through the world with fear. You listen to people who pump lack of love and hate and you walk through the world feeling like everybody's against you. Why that person looking at me like that? Why that nation looking at me like that? Why them heathens? You're doing that because that's what you're putting in your mind. That's what's being poured into you, which means it's literally doing a mind trick. It literally is divination. It's changing the way you survey and perceive the world so that even if there is good, you won't see it. Even if Yah is doing something, you don't see it. Even if Yah is in the midst of something, you're so caught up in all the negative, you can't even see what Yah is doing for you because that is the framework that you've constructed in your mind. Some of you all sit on social media and literally people have different experiences. I have quotes that make me feel good. I follow pages that it's a good experience. Some of you get off social media and you're anxious and depressed. It's the framework of what's pouring into you that's causing you to have this. It's literally witchcraft and divination. And a lot of this teaching is witchcraft and divination because it's only letting you focus on one small area, very small area of who Yah is. And a lot of it is just identity. And a lot of it's just showing up at feast days, but none of it has to do with true restoration and transparency that transforms. He says, false vision, divination, and a thing of naught. He was like, it's nothing. Literally, it's the idea of a pagan god that's vain and insignificant. You feel empty because what you're getting preached to you is a false god, because it's the god in that person's head. And it's not giving you the opportunity to have an encounter with the living Elohim. You only get the version of the God that that person has. So if they have a punitive God, you get a punitive God. If they have a God that hates other people, you have then accept an idol and a God deposited into you that hates other people and that can't see clearly and can't do justice and can't let two things exist at one time. You can't be a both and. You can't stand and walk on a journey with the person as they navigate through things, because that is that person's idea of how life is. And then you adopt it and you then get shifted into their divination and how their mind is constructed, and it becomes your mental construct. That's when it becomes a cult. And a cult will have you dying when Yah is pleading for you to live. You think you have it all, and it's like, no, you keep looping through the same stuff. Keep looping through the same stuff because you're unhealed. And there's no opportunity for healing when a person refuses to heal and they're projecting their vision and their idea of life and Elohim onto you. It becomes insignificant. And then the last part is, and the deceit of their heart. He says, they lying about what they seeing. And because they're lying about their seeing, they're reconstructing the way you see me and you see the world. And that is idolatry and a false God that you've accepted, because now they're your God. Whether you lie, ain't no man my God. Yeah, he is. A man you won't call out on his stuff. A woman you won't call out on her stuff. A person you won't confront when you see them doing things. A person where you go, why are they just smarter than me? No, absolutely not. That is your God. You don't question them just the same way you won't question anything else. You've been taught not to. And you adhere to that same thing because, oh, you can't touch Yah's anointed. Wait. Hold on a second. No, you can't kill them, but you are required to hold them accountable. Don't put your mouth on the, no. Don't talk about them behind their back. Literally, there's a way and a procedure to handle things. And based upon their response to how you handle things is what you decide to do with the rest of your time and your life and your resources and whatever. Come on, Tentacora. It's just what it is. So he says, a thing of naught, because they're vain and insignificant. And this last part, and the deceit, they're prophesying the deceit of their heart. This word for deceitfulness is the action or practice of literally someone concealing or misrepresenting the truth. That's the problem. Not so much a full lie, it's misrepresenting Yah's heart. A misrepresentation of Yah's heart keeps people far away from repentance and keeps them in guilt and shame, which is the devil's playground. And a lot of you all are transitioning out of a cult mindset. A cult wants you unhealed. A cult reminds you of where you're wounded. A cult reminds you of where you're hurt. And a cult very rarely reminds you of the freedom and release that you have in Yah, and how it's a process to get to full wholeness. And that Yah is on that process with you, because it's your shame and your guilt and feeling dumb. And, well, I can't really do that. I don't know like that person, no. And then all that is deceitfulness. The action or practice. And these people are practicing this. They are well-versed in human behavior because they've either been pastors or preachers, or they've done this long enough, or they're sociopaths or narcissists. And they're people who prey on human behavior in order to keep you in a position of sickness because it benefits them. And this idea of deceitfulness of their own heart is this reality, this truth, if you will, that you then have to betray yourself to agree with them. You have to go against everything that you know to be true and know to be right, to then agree with it because it's from their own mind. You can't see it in scripture. It's not adding up. I can't see how you got that. Well, it's because you ain't as deep as me. So you ain't in the spirit enough. You're not doing the work. So you need to do more fasting, more praying. Deceit, the practice of misrepresenting the truth or causing you to misrepresent what Yah's telling you. If Yah's telling you, you know what, I'm with you. I drew you into this walk because I want to walk with you. And I'm going to restore you and I'm going to make you whole. And then you have a person, oh, you know what, you got a spirit on you. And you got to, like, okay. But Yah told me that when he brought me from boredom, from the outside world, from manipulation, that yes, I do. Yes, we all do have something that we're working through, but this was supposed to be a safe place. But now you're accusing me of being something that I'm not because of the deceitfulness. Because see, you misrepresenting Yah telling me that he's a safe place and exchanging Yah for you now puts me in a position where I never got what I was supposed to get on this journey. And it causes me to then feel like the walk and the journey with Yah is the problem. But see, I've switched hands. I'm no longer walking with Yah. I'm walking with a person who says and has a type of holiness, but not any way consistent with what Yah says. He says that's a deceitfulness of heart. It's misrepresentation of what Yah tell you. Yah said, no, I'm restoring you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. I called you. You're still here. You're still present. That's because I want to do something with you. And a person says, no, I want to do something with you. Let me tell you what Yah is telling you. This is what you really was hearing. You ain't worth it. You deserve to be here. And the last part for heart, it's deceitfulness and it's an inner inclination. It's their own wickedness. You got people out here, and I'm going to tell you like I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you because I know. You have preachers, prophets, teachers who are in some real messed up stuff. They preach about things because it's based upon their inner self. They hate white people because they have issues with white people. They can't understand migration because they don't know their family history and background and they're hurt. They talk about types of sin because they're doing those types of sin secretly. And it's something they hate about themselves and they don't want to deal with it. And they go through Yom Kippur after Yom Kippur after Yom Kippur, don't deal with that thing, and then try to construct a world and put together a vision that fits their sickness and their inability to literally navigate through that. So they project on everybody else, making other people who are in the same position, had they known that there was a person like them who was struggling with the things that they were struggling through in transparency and were giving it to Yah, that could be their healing. But instead, they shame and they guilt those type of people because in their mind, the God in their head is shaming and guilting them. And then they cause more sickness. Therefore, thus saith Yah Elohim, Yah, concerning the prophets that prophesy in my name. And I sent them not. Yet they say, sword and famine shall not be in this land. By sword and famine shall those prophets be consumed. Literally, what he says is false prophecy and vain imaginations are going to cost people. It comes at a high cost. It literally comes at a high cost. He says, you know what? They're going to have their houses torn apart. And they're going to experience, I'm going to show you that those prophets are false because I'm going to start doing some things that you didn't think could happen to that person. And I don't want you to sit around and think that those things happened because somehow the devil was attacking them. No. We're not doing that no more. See, the adversary only has the position and the permission to do the things that Yah has allowed. And Yah only allows those type of things for refinement or exposure. And if you're being refined, then the refinement process is transparent and you tell people, look, this is Job. I know I'm not right. I get it. But this is happening to me. And you know what? Maybe Yah is doing this. So I got to roll with it. I don't like it. David had done a lot of stuff. But Shimmy, you bloody man, you and the sons of Zeruiah, like, I will kill him. He's like, maybe, just maybe, Yah is allowing this as an opportunity, an occasion to bless me. Because I know what he's saying he doesn't know anything about. But Yah says in these days, because these people are following their own hearts and they're deceitful, he's like, I'm gonna start doing some things that you don't even think would happen to people like that. And do not for a second think that it's happening because I don't have my hand in it. He says, I'm gonna bring the sword, I'm gonna divide their homes. He said that very thing to David. So there will be a sword, there'll be division in your home for the rest of your life. Why? Because you prophesied falsely. You used the word to kill Uriah. Literally, he used Torah. He used the verse that said, if a man has not established his house, he can't go out to battle, send him home. If a man has taken a wife and has not laid with her, send him home. He did that very thing and then use as occasion to be like, well, he ain't following Torah, put him on the front line. Because you have those things where God said the sword will not depart from your home. It's going to be a marker that shows that you did something that literally caused this famine. There'll be a drought of the word. Watch, you're going to hear these preachers ain't going to have nothing to say. Listen to what they're saying for Pete's sake, though. Now I don't know who Pete is or what his sake is, but it fit. It rolled off the tongue really nice. Listen to what they're saying. Stop getting enamored with, well, okay, that wasn't a good one, but he just said, are they saying the same thing? Are they looping through the same stuff? Is there any new revelation? And I'm not talking about new that nobody ever knows, but is it progressing? Are they still talking about the same things? Guess what? They're experiencing a drought of the word. Yah's not speaking to them, so they're going to keep on talking about the same things. If you are still hearing about Christmas and Easter and head wraps and that's because Yah's not talking. Because there's so much stuff that we need to be doing in a process of refinement so that we can constantly die well every day. That stuff is literally, go find it online. Go find it online. There are things, guess what else? You may not live to see the end times. It's very important. Yes, eschatology is great. But you know what you're supposed to do? Mind your today's business. So you worrying about how everything's going to unfold and you getting wrapped up in Yah's like, hey, you got something right now you need to be doing this right now. I get on my kids all the time for that. You worrying about what you're wearing today and your clothes not even clean. Tomorrow, and your clothes not even clean today. You're worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow and you're not working on you. So you spending your time, oh, okay, so Israel's over here and Gaza's doing this and then America, oh, it's about to be World War, You're going to be World War, find yourself real sad when y'all say, but when you was all over there, when I was doing all this, remember Josiah? I would never be like Josiah. Remember Pharaoh Nico? Y'all doing that thing. Y'all is doing this over here, and you riding out like, yeah, I'm gonna roll up about the fight. I got something to say. You know what I'm doing? I'm like, ooh, it's time to get my, I gotta press this. I spot wrinkle. I'm not worried about what's happening over there. Outside of the humanitarian and the human part of me, I'm not figuring out what Yah's doing, because guess what? My hand ain't never been in that pot. I ain't spent one block with Yah. I've only been here 35 years. Guess what? I trust that everything he does well. I don't fear for this life. I know it's an opportunity for me to get in alignment. So when you get people who get all caught up in that stuff and then forget that the purpose of the prophet, teacher, preacher is so that a work is done in the called out assembly. So when Yah returns, they are found without spot or wrinkle. That is the main focus. You are the focus. For those of you who have teachers who love you, your life, your refinement, your wellness, mentally, that is the focus. Care, love, walking with you, seeing you stumble, not walk away, being right there, picking you up. That is the work. That is the work for the babe. That is the work for the fellowship. That is the work for community. That is the work for sisterhood. That is the work of brotherhood. That's not banging on different camps and dealing with all the... How is it developing the person? So when that is not the central focus, when that is not it, you have a red flag. You have a red banner. You have a red billboard. You have a red blimp. Because literally he says these people who do this are consumed. And the people to whom they prophesy, don't let anybody have something to say and don't listen to everybody. This is the time to start weeding out people. It's right now. I've seen the cycles happen. I've been in this walk and I've been around in that way long enough to see it. You're either going to cling to false or you're going to let Yah clean out the garbage. It has to happen because Yah's voice needs to be heard clearly. And the people to whom they prophesy, so the false prophet and the people get the same measurement. But I was just listening to them. I was just doing what they said. And the people to whom they prophesy they shall be cast out in the streets of Jerusalem because of the fact that there's a famine and the sword, and no one shall bury them. I know it's sad, it's probably triggering, but I've had people go to church and the church won't even help bury the people that die. But then imagine literally people, their lives end up in calamity, their lives are falling apart and they don't know why. I've been listening to such and such and I've been doing what they've been saying. I'm calling people heathens too, and I'm doing too. And you don't wonder why your life is messed up, and all the while that person was lying. And so now you don't know how to live peaceably amongst your neighbor, because that's what Torah says. You're supposed to have peace. You can't have peace thinking everybody's your enemy. You can't do it. It's impossible. You don't understand why you out of a job because you done went off on somebody because they a dirty, nasty heathen and they because you've been taught that. You don't understand, well, now you don't have nothing to eat in the last days because you can't go to nobody because you don't have nobody. You're not going to understand how you don't have an ally or a friend in nobody, where you can have people who maybe out in the world in the last days, and maybe, and I'm not getting into like the mark of the beast, but they might be able to buy and sell when you can't, but because they don't really see a big deal in it, they'll buy and sell for you too and feed you. But you don't have nobody because you've been taught to get rid of everybody so that you'll just have a really, really tough time in a really, really crappy world. Because you then take on the mind based upon divination of a person that a person gave you. And they're not even going to help bury you. They're not going to help feed your kids. They're not going to tell you why there's no water. They don't even care about their own wives and their own sons and their own daughters, because a hard heart doesn't care if they know they're lying to Yah. They know inside. Saul knew what happened. And he still was going out fighting, still had Doeg the Edomite kill the high priest, chase David. And the whole time he's telling David, I know you're such a better man than I am, but I'm going to kill you. He knew. He knew that the kingdom had been stripped from him. He was there when it happened. It wasn't something somebody told him by proxy. He was literally present when he disobeyed Yah and continued. He knew he was lying, and he didn't care what it cost Israel. He didn't care what it cost his family. He didn't care what it cost the army. He didn't care that his son was going to die with him, because he went to the witch at Endor, and the witch at Endor said, do not. He spoke to Samuel. He said, do not go out to battle. You are going to die. And he sent his son and himself and the men who trusted him in the battle, because he was lying to himself. They don't care. They don't care about collateral damage. They are severed in their conscience. When you can watch children go out and try to find water, when you can watch literally a person in pain and hurting in your home, when you can literally see those things and not do anything, he says, they don't care. When it comes down to it, they'll be like, that's on you. So Yah says, because I know this, I will pour their wickedness upon them. Therefore, they shall not say, don't say this word to them. Therefore, thou shalt say this word to them. So this is where we're going to end. And I know I'm way over, but we're going to end right here. He says, how about you say this? Let my eyes run down with tears day and night, and let them not cease. For the virgin daughter of my people is broken with a great breach and with a very grievous blow. This is the third time we've heard this now. I've set up something, I've protected it, and you've literally defiled it. If I go forth into the field, then behold the slain with the sword. And if I enter into the city, then behold them that are sick with famine. Yea, both the prophet and the priest go about into a land they know not. You're going to be taken captive. This should be an eye-opener, but it's not. And it wasn't for Saul. And it's not for anybody who enters into a space where they are so self-deceived, or they are literally having divination because of a person's deceitful imagination, their own heart practice on them. And then it says, hast thou utterly rejected Judah, and hast thy soul loathed Zion? Like, just because you hate us? Why hast thou smitten us, and there is no healing for us? Because this is what people are gonna be saying. Like, why am I not seeing a change? Why does it feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and there's no healing for us? I'm doing what I'm being told to do. We look for peace and there is no good. We look for shalom and there is no function. How? And for the time of healing, and behold trouble. The idea here, this word is, it's marpe, and it literally comes from the root word rapha, and it means this idea of to repair. I'm looking to be repaired. Like, I came to these people and I'm here because I'm supposed to be being repaired. This is not just it's literally the idea of rapha type of healing is to literally take like a rug or a tapestry, and you know how like sometimes the loops in a rug get pulled out, and a person who's skilled in repairing the rug can literally go back to the place where the trauma or where the rug is snagged and pull that down and then fix that and then put everything back in place. That's the kind of healing we're being called to. It's not a healing of just, it's like, no, the idea of kafar, atonement, to be smeared, to be covered, is so that you are affirmed in your acceptance into a more intricate and careful eye type of healing. That's what was supposed to be happening. It says, look, there's snags all through here, but you don't want to go back and pull the tapestry back and fix those. And the people are not, you're looking for that. It's supposed to be a time of Rapha. We're in a time, and it's a privilege. I don't know if any of you have older parents or older people who have said this, but they're like, we didn't have time to do all this gentle parenting and we didn't have time for all that. Why? Because they were in survival mode. They were just putting a rug together. If they got snagged, that's just what it was. If I had trauma, I just had to keep going. Yah has put us in a particular time and place in this world where we have the privilege to not be enslaved, to be able to turn off our TV and turn off our phones and actually kind of go inward and do a Rapha. Have a Rapha, have a Rapha type of healing done in safe places with safe people. That is what your teachers and preachers and prophets are called to right now. That is it. To say, we're not at war. We are a people that are disenfranchised, and we are, but guess what? It's kind of cooking up. But we were supposed to, instead of picking a person apart, we're supposed to be in a safe place, peeling back the layers and going back and healing that, that 3-year-old trauma and that is a gift from Yah, to be living in this day and time. And for many of us to be able to do that with our parents and our grandparents, to be in this day and time where time is slowed down, where we have more than enough. We got PTO. We got the ability. We had COVID. We had time where the whole world was shut down and people didn't have to work and got paid. And instead of doing Rapha type of healing, we were waging war against groups and people and individuals, and internally still afflicted and conflicted. Yeah, we're going to have to give account for that time. He says, and for the time of healing, when literally right now, we're not supposed to be worrying about this. We're literally supposed to be preparing so that those things do not become triggers for false preachers, for false prophets, for the Antichrist. We're supposed to heal so that we can actually hear, yeah. And for the time of healing, and behold, trouble. Instead of healing, what we have is terror and anxiety. We're being given terror and anxiety when we're supposed to be like those who were healed before us, who could stand in the face of lions and fire and not be afraid because we knew it. We knew we've had the test. We've had things roll out that we were told we would never be able to go back outside. If you would never be da-da-da-da-da. And we began to make decisions. And instead of healing so that we could trust Yah, we had more fear put. And all we heard was, oh, this is this and this. And if you do this, you go on to. And it's like, but what about the healing? So that when the real thing comes, because that wasn't the real thing. When the real thing comes, you're actually repaired. where you can trust, you don't have the mommy wound, you don't have the daddy wound, you don't have the abandonment issues, you don't have the ability to, you don't lack the ability to be able to hear from We're supposed to have those things in place, and is gifting that to us, and it's being snatched because another person decides that they don't want to do that work. They don't want to talk about this thing. That's too personal. We got bigger fish to fry. What bigger fish to fry than the healing of the wounded daughter of Zion? What bigger fish to fry? What bigger fish to fry than healing the women in your community because they're raising the sons and daughters of the next generation in a world that's upside down? There's nothing more important right now. Israel is not more important right now. Ukraine is not more important right now. Russia, China. None of those things in their entirety are more important than the individuals who need healing, and instead of healing are in a time of trouble and are in a time of fear and anxiety. That's the definition of trouble. That is the number one thing in the society right now. If you don't believe the Bible and you think Yah is just popping off and giving words, anxiety and depression, fear and anxiety are the number one things in our society right now. We acknowledge, our wickedness, and the iniquity of our fathers, for we have sinned against thee. Do not abhor us for your name's sake, not because we don't deserve it. Do not disgrace the throne of your glory. Remember and break not covenant with us. Even though we covenanted over here, don't break it with us. Are there any, this is a drought, remember? And it's a time where nothing's working out. You have to ask the question, are there any among the vanities of the Gentiles, among the vanities of the nations, among all the things that the nations are doing, among all the things that we put in a position higher than what Yah's saying, that can cause rain? Or can give, or can the heavens give showers? He's like, when it all comes down to it, it really becomes simple. I got all this internal conflict. I got all these things going on, and I'm worrying about all these futile things. But you know what? Can any of those things do those simple things? Can any of the worries, can any of the stuff, can it make water come down from heaven? Can any of the false deities and the false gods, or my own angst and anxiety, is it going to add a minute to my life? No. I like this verse, this part of this verse. He says, ain't you him? Art thou not he? Art not thou he? You that guy. Ain't you him? Oh, Yah Elohim. Therefore, and this is the part I was like, I'm not going to get to this and cry, but I might. Therefore, with all of this, with the false prophets and the false preachers and everything that makes us feel like we have to make a decision, he's like, you know what? How about this? I'm going to stop. And I'm going to wait. The word here is kavah, but the word we see it as tikva, which is another word for hope. Hope is tikva. Kavah means to wait. We will wait upon thee. It's a very interesting thing because there's a drought. And when there's a drought, we assume that there's nothing under the soil. We assume that it's just dry and dead. But what happens in a drought is that things go dormant. Doesn't mean that it's not there. It's just that there's not the activator there to make that thing appear. And so Yah says, say this. How about this? How about, I know it's a drought and I know it's rough, but if you do the work and if you trust me, even though it's difficult, I know that in a drought, the seeds are still there. So the difference between a drought and abundance is obedience. And in your obedience, then when you do these things, and then when you do justice, and then when you do, guess what? I'll open up the floodgates. And because the seed has hope, that's what the prophet they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be uncovering the seed, because the seed has hope, and because the seed is mine, and because the seed is real. When I let go and I release the reins of the floodgates, I let it go, the anticipation causes immediate activation of the blessing and the gift. He says, therefore, we will wait upon thee, because I know what I have. I know. And I know it's dry. And I know what the times are. And I know I've accepted the false teachers. And I know I've listened to what they said. I know I've rejected your water and I'm dry. But I'll wait because I have hope. And with that hope, I know I have the expectation that with that hope, it'll flourish. He's like, so guess what? You him. I ain't got nothing else. Nothing I can do will stop drought. Nothing I can do can stop this. But if I progress through this and I'm obedient, what you can give me is greater than what I've had, and more, exceedingly and abundantly more than what I can imagine. So he says, you know why I know? You know why I know you him? And you know why I'll wait, qualifier. And it don't even have to be a list. He doesn't even put a list. He says, because you made all these things. He says, you know, and you wouldn't do it, and you wouldn't say it, and you wouldn't prescribe it if it wasn't for my good. And I know we've talked about a lot, but all of this still was for their good. To see this, he said, say this. Aren't you not him? Oh, Yah, our Elohim, that you are power. Therefore, we're going to wait on you. Because you made all these things. You made me, everything that I have, and everything that I am. When I look back over my life, you're here. So I'm going to trust you now. And I'm going to trust you then. And I'm going to continue trusting you, because that which you have made, you sustain. So either it's one or two things. And I can't believe the other thing in my head, which says I'm not yours. So I have to believe the other part, which is that you've made me and you're going to sustain me. And it's just not right now. It's just not right now. But I know that you have to peel some things back and repair some things so that moving forward, I don't make the mistakes in abundance that I made in the drought. So I don't end up back here. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful what Yah has done. He does everything well in his time. And waiting is difficult. But if you know like you know, that in obedience rain comes. On the other side, and I'll end with this, on the other side of Yom Kippur, it's almost like we go through a process that then determines whether we get rain. It seems sometimes a little pagan, but we go through a season where it's not rainy season. And we're called to do the work when we don't see the necessity for the work, because the harvest comes during that same time. So you have a lot already coming in. And sometimes when you have a lot, you don't realize that you also need to do the work so that you continue to have. And Yom Kippur, and that time of deep introspection, and that time where we share and we gather and we disperse all that good, it is a restarting. I know we don't consider fall to be a new year, but it is a new start of a harvest. It's the end of the complete harvest cycle. It starts actually at that time, and it goes, and we go through spring because we start planting during this time. And that's how we get our spring harvest that we use during Pesach. And then we continue on and we get our summer harvest, all of that, and it ends during that time. So it's a beginning and an end time. And it's interesting because we don't get any of the harvest that happens in the beginning, in the springtime, when everything begins to flourish, without the winter. Because that's when you get the heavy rains. That's the rain that breaks up the ground. That's the rain that does the work. That's the rain that begins to activate the seeds. It's the rain that gives the grass that the cows eat on all year long. It's the rain that loosens the soil so the roots can go a little bit deeper for those plants that are getting ready to hit third year. We can actually, third, fourth, fifth year, we can start eating off of those plants. That's when the work happens. That's when hope happens. Hope is established when you can't see it. Hope is established when the trees are barren. Hope is established when you plant the seeds and you got to wait 3 or 4 months to even see that what you planted actually took place. But if we don't do the breaking apart of the threshing floor of Yom Kippur, then you don't have seed to plant. And if you don't have seed to plant, then you don't have the expectation of harvest. And if you don't have the expectation of harvest, then all hope is lost. And without hope, it means nothing means anything. And so it's the beauty of coming out of Yom Kippur, saying what we're going to let go, proving that we've let it go, being reminded when it's Festival of Lights that literally, even in the darkness, Yah is still present. And then beginning to see the days grow longer and longer and longer, and saying, you are still here. You didn't leave me in the darkness. And you sent rain and you saturated the ground. And you've done a thing. And then to come and see the buds in spring as the literal signification that Yah did exactly what he said he was going to do. But it doesn't take place if we don't do the work on the back end. It just doesn't. And he's like, I did all that. I did all that. I did all that. Cool. All right.